Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Tom's Gadget Garage. Today I am cruising around on the newly released Lectric XPeak 2.0. Back in October of last year, I was actually invited to Lectric's Media Day event where they gave myself as well as a bunch of other folks the opportunity to test ride the pre-production versions of both the XPeak 2.0 as well as the XPedition 2.0, their cargo bike. I've got both of those bikes right now, and today we're going to be test riding the XPeak 2.0. So I'm just going to be cruising around here in the Mesa, Gilbert, Arizona area. Right now we're riding by the Mesa Gateway Airport. Used to be Williams Air Force Base back in the day, and they closed it down, and now it is a, what is that, like a commercial airport? I don't know, they got airlines like Allegiant and stuff like that that fly out of here. Now this XPeak 2.0 does come with a 750 watt motor, which is capable of cranking out 1,310 watts of peak power. So when I took this out in the desert, and on like a 110-degree day last summer, I should say last October, wasn't even the summer, we had some freakishly hot weather. Did a really good job riding off the beaten path. Anyways, we're here in the Cessna Citation area of this air park here. As you can see, they've got lots of planes out here. All on the tarmac there. I'm a little bit of a aviation fanatic, so stuff like this is super interesting for me. So if we see a lot of airplanes on today's ride, you know, it's my fault. So right now we're going to go ahead and ride on over towards the Mesa Gateway Airport terminals. See how busy it is on this glorious Sunday morning. It's supposed to be 77 degrees Fahrenheit today. Unusually warm weather this time of year. Getting back to the XPeak 2.0, so I did have the opportunity to ride this around last October, and I was really impressed with it. Now there was some banging around. I think it was a combination of the kickstand and possibly the controller at the bottom of the frame. Now keep in mind, we got a lot of people testing out these bikes at that time, and so they were being put through a lot of abuse. But this one here so far is riding very well. Did it come out of the box perfect? No, it did not. I'll go over that here in a moment, but anyways, so far it's a very smooth and quiet ride. Got a nice airplane display up here on the right. We still get a lot of like military air traffic through here. Tons of helicopters. Tons of fighter jets. We get, you know, that, what is that? That Boeing Guppy, that funny looking silver metallic airplane that looks like a guppy fish. That thing strolls on through here every now and then. Lots of opportunity to see all kinds of cool airplanes here. All right, there's our airport terminals there on the left. Now this particular bike does come with a torque sensor, which is a big upgrade over the cadence sensor that the previous generation of the XPeak had. And what I like about torque sensors is they give you a much more natural ride feel. It's just a lot smoother. And you know, it rides just like it would ride a regular bike. The difference is you get the sensation that you have superhuman legs. So the harder you pedal, the more output you're going to get from the motor. You know, right now I'm just casually pedaling. We are in pedal assist 4 right now. Normally I ride around in level 3, but we're cruising around on the streets today. And so I want to have that extra power when I need it. But with the torque sensor, right, I'm casually pedaling. We're going about 18, 19 miles an hour right now. But as soon as I start putting in more effort, we are going to get a bump in speed. And so right now I do have this unlocked to class 3 mode, which will take us up to 28 miles an hour. But honestly, with most of my riding, 17 to 20 miles an hour is more than sufficient for me. That's like a nice, calm, relaxing speed to like take in the views, a little bit of the scenery, all that fun stuff. Now this Lectric XPeak 2.0 is an all-terrain e-bike of sorts, and it's got certifications to that e-mountain bike standard. Because if you're going to go out and take this on the trails and abuse the bike, it should be able to hold up no problem. One of the big differences between the XPeak 1.0 and this 2.0 is the fact that they now have a hydroformed frame. It's a completely different frame than the first version. This is the step over version, but I remember when they came out with the step through edition, there were some people having problems with like wobbling on the bike. I saw some reviews for that, and I saw people wobbling in certain scenarios when they'd load up the front of the bike. So for the XPeak 2.0, that's a different frame, hydroformed, and this is a step over, so I don't think they had the wobble problem with the step over version. Step over is going to give you more rigidity, but even on the new step through, it looks a heck of a lot more robust than it did before. So go ahead and turn here. I got turn signals in my helmet, by the way. That's what this little control here is on my right handlebar. I'm using the Lumos Ultra e-bike helmet, and this particular helmet has got a front ambient light, it's got tail lights, it's got turn signals, all of that fun stuff built right into the helmet. And so if you want to check out my review on this helmet, I'll include a link above as well as in the description below. I don't know if you can see it, all these warehouses here. There's a heck of a lot more to the left of us. You can't see it on camera, but they're building up a ton of data centers. So this is like the Mesa Tech Corridor, where companies like Google, Apple, Facebook, or Meta, whatever they call themselves nowadays, are building up data center infrastructure, which is great for the economy. It's bringing in a ton of jobs. I'm all for bringing more industry out here. Unfortunately, it does come with the downside that what used to be open desert and farmland is all being replaced by buildings, which is unfortunate. A lot of the places that I ride around closer to my home are being built up and filled in with apartments and new housing subdivisions, but I guess everything comes with a cost. So if you are curious, this is the long range edition of this bike. So it's 48 volt, 20 amp hour battery. That's 960 watt hours of capacity, which Lectric says should be good for 80 miles of theoretical range. I say theoretical because a lot of those tests are done with like a 180-pound rider in the lowest speed mode, riding around in basically treadmill conditions. And so in the real world, you're likely going to get 60, 50 to, I would say 50 to 70% of that value, depending on how you ride. I will be doing a full range test with this bike in the future, so stay tuned for that. I'll take it on our range test course that I take all of our bikes on. That'll give us a good comparison to some of this bike's competitors. But usually for those we ride around in pedal assist 3. Now what I'm going to do here in a moment is I'm going to pull over into one of these parking lots. I'm going to tell you about some of the things I had to make adjustments on when I got this bike out of the box. So this is going to be as good a place as any to pull over here. And when you get off these bikes, I highly recommend just setting the pedal assist level to 0. That way you don't accidentally hit the throttle or do something. All right, so first and foremost, out of the box, it wasn't shifting the greatest. It was actually getting hung up on a gear and not, fully transitioning to the next gear. So I made some adjustments here at the rear derailleur. I actually just turned this little barrel adjuster in the direction that I wanted the chain to go, so it was getting, hung up and it wasn't going into the next gear. So I just made some adjustments there, and we're good to go. Lectric does recommend after like 50 to 100 miles to go get a professional tune-up, which I'll probably do. Take it to my local bike shop, let them have a crack at it, make sure everything is operating well. I could do it myself, but there's opportunities to support local businesses. Plus, you know, I've got a ton of reviews that I'm working on right now and don't have a lot of time. Next thing, this headlight. This is their Elite headlight. I'm not a huge fan of this headlight. I'm going to tell you that right now. But I'm especially not a fan of the hardware that they use to attach it. And so what I went ahead and did was I replaced this 1-inch machine screw that they had in there. It was painted black, as well as their locking nut, and I replaced it with some hardware I got from Home Depot. It's a number 10 1-inch machine screw, 24 threads per inch, and then a locking nut, number 10 locking nut, 24 threads per inch, and that's been perfect. I also took off the little reflector there, but this isn't moving at all. It's nice and sturdy. But the standard hardware, the standard locking nut, was actually stripped out, which was really unfortunate. And I found that when you're trying to clamp the headlight and the reflector at the same time, it really does cause problems. It doesn't get as snug as you want it, so I just took that reflector off, replaced the hardware, and we're golden with this. Other than that, it's been perfect. I haven't had any other issues. You know, keep in mind, I've only got 21 miles on here, so I wouldn't expect any issues, but if something does crop up, I'll definitely let you know. We'll hop back on this bike here. We'll make our way down the road, other side of the airport. Maybe we can see some planes taking off. I don't know. There doesn't seem to be a whole lot of activity today at this airport. It's a smaller airport. Now, if you're curious, real quick, I'll just get into it now. If you ever want to unlock the speed on your bike, you just hold down the plus and minus buttons, okay? And then you use the power button to cycle to P8. That's your P setting. And then you can adjust that. 32 is the default, that's kilometers per hour. You can bump it up to 45, which is the maximum value there. And then push and hold the plus and minus button. And now your bike is unlocked. Just check with your local rules and regulations. I know states like California, as usual, are mixing things up a little bit with their e-bike regulations. But anyways, if you want to unlock it, now you know how to do it. Now with this bike, if you want to ride around using throttle only, you absolutely can do that. You do have a left-mounted under-the-bar throttle here that you can press on, and that'll apply power. Now keep in mind, this throttle speed is of course going to be limited by the level of pedal assist that you're in. It's also going to be limited to 20 miles an hour regardless of whether or not you unlock the speed on the bike. So for regulatory purposes, the throttle is capped to 20 miles an hour. If you want to enable cruise control on this bike, you have to push the throttle, hold it in, and then hold the minus button at the same time. And there we go, we've got cruise control enabled. It is a little finicky to deal with because you have the throttle and the button that you have to push on the same side, so that's kind of unfortunate, but it's definitely doable. And so if you're going to be going on long stretches, want to take a little break, you can cruise around in cruise control. It's absolutely fantastic. I use that on some of my longer range tests, and it definitely comes in handy. Not all bikes have cruise control, but when they do come equipped with it, it's very convenient. Now, if you want to disable cruise control, all you have to do is hit the brakes or hit the throttle, and it'll turn that right off. Now, keep in mind, cruise control can only be enabled with the throttle in this button. You cannot enable cruise control while you're in pedal assist, while you're pedaling. Like right now, I'm holding down that minus button, and no cruise control is activating. But if I hold down the throttle and the minus button, it enables cruise control after about 3 or 4 seconds. One of the features that I really appreciate on this bike is the fact that they use a high quality front suspension fork. They use an RST Renegade front fork, which has got 80 millimeters of travel. And what I really like about it is not only is it very comfortable and responsive, but it's also got very easy to adjust preload as well as lockout dials. Sometimes those preload dials on cheaper forks are really hard to get twisted around. With this, they actually intelligently design it so that it's a breeze. You can quickly and easily do it with this little flip up lever, which I'll show you here in a moment. All right, I'll get turned around here and I'll show you what I'm talking about with this suspension fork. All right, so I don't know how well you can see this, but this here is our preload adjustment lever. It's actually this little metal tab that lifts up, and you can actually twist and easily adjust this. With a lot of these forks, you get that plastic kind of cheap thing, which is very difficult to twist around. It eats up your hands, so it's a very nice touch there. And then, of course, easy little lever and tab on the lockout and travel adjust. In terms of the gearing on this bike, it does have this 11 to 32 tooth 8-gear freewheel in the back, as well as this Shimano Altus derailleur. And if we go up to our gear shift here, you'll see we've got the trigger style gear shift, which is super ergonomic. We've got those 8 gears that we can choose from here. So I definitely like this over some of the cheaper ones that you see on some other bikes. And then over here we do have our 46 tooth chain ring. It's got a chain guard here on both sides. And then we've got these nice aluminum pedals that do have these metal pegs in there, so you don't have to worry about losing grip with your shoe. And these are quick release. Now, as I mentioned, this does have front suspension. It does not have suspension in the rear, so it is a hardtail. But what it does come with is this suspension seat post. I know Lectric does a lot of deals where they include a bunch of stuff in their combo packages, so keep an eye out for that. Suspension seat post does do a very good job at making the ride just a little extra comfortable. This is the standard Lectric saddle. I'm not a huge fan of this, but I do recommend testing it out, making sure that it's the right fit for you. Because for some people this is perfect. For me, it's not. I usually swap these out with my Cloud 9 seats. I've actually got one on my Lectric XPeak 2.0 right now, as well as my Lectric 1. In the back, we do have this rack. It does have a 60-pound capacity, and then I've got my Kemimoto bag here, which has got all my stuff. And if you're curious what I carry with me here, here's some camera equipment, disregard that. But in here I do have a bike repair kit. I've got a bottle of slime, although these tires do have slime pre-installed. I've got my Leatherman. I've got my Light Lock X1 bike lock. I've got a crescent wrench in there. I've also got my hex keys. I don't know how well you can see it, but my Allen keys in there. So in the event that I get a flat tire or need to do any kind of quick roadside maintenance, I've got everything that I need. That way I don't have to call anybody up to, come bail me out. Now, this Kemimoto bag is one that I've used on a lot of my e-bikes, and when you pop it out here, it's actually got these like pannier bags that fold down. You can attach. It's also got some waterproof cover that comes with it, so really comes in handy if you're going to be cruising around. In terms of braking power, what I really like about this bike is it does come with this 203mm rotor up front, which of course has hydraulic brake calipers. And in the rear, it's slightly smaller. It's a 180mm rotor, also with hydraulic calipers in the rear. So this thing does have plenty of braking power. I tested that thoroughly when I was riding this off-road at that Lectric Media Day event back in October. Now, this here is going to be the location of our battery. So this particular bike has a 48-volt 20-amp-hour battery. And if you want to remove this, you actually insert the key on the other side, and you'll push this little safety button, which will release the battery gently so it doesn't just drop out and hit the ground. And then you can charge that battery externally, or if you want to charge with the battery in the bike, you do have an external charging port there. So this bike does come with locking grips, which is really nice. That way these things don't twist around on you. This is going to be our hydraulic brake levers. Disregard this. This is for my Lumos helmet. It's basically the turn signal mechanism for that. Trigger style shifters, which I already went over. This is our color LCD display. I really do like this over the previous generation black and white displays. Under that is going to be a USB-C charging port, so if you have to charge some of your devices on the fly, you can absolutely do that. This is our standard electric control pad, our left hydraulic brake lever, our throttle, our left locking grip, and of course that's my Meach House side mirror, which I highly recommend. I've been using this particular one for 18 months now on a variety of my bikes, and I really like it. I just put it on the left-hand side, nothing on the right, because here in the US, we ride around on the right side of the road, and I just want to see who's to the left of me. And then of course that's our Elite headlight up front, and then working our way back, we do have a tail light. Now this isn't a brake light, unfortunately, it's just a tail light, but I'm not too concerned about that because I got brake lights built into my helmet. You do have fenders here in the rear and the front. Installing those is easy. The rear is already pre-installed. The front you have to install yourself, which is 3 attachment points. You've got one up here and 2 on either side of the fork, and you're good to go. Assembling this bike is really easy. You just throw that front tire on. It does have a through axle, which is very nice. Means you're always going to get it nice and centered on there. You have to, insert the seat into the seat post and, use the quick release to tighten it down. And then, of course, attach the handlebars, and that's about it. In terms of maximum load on this bike, it will support up to 330 pounds, which includes the rider as well as the 60-pound capacity on the rear rack. So just keep that in mind. Anyways, I'm going to go ahead and hop back on this bike, and we're going to continue on our ride. Now, when it comes to the safety of the electrical systems on this bike, just know that the battery is certified to UL 2271, and the electrical system on this bike is certified to UL 2849. So 2 levels of UL certification for this XPeak 2.0. So here's a lot of those warehouses that I was talking about that they're building out here. Empty right now. They got available signs. The ones out on the horizon out there are all part of that Mesa Tech corridor. But they're building more and more of these things all over the place. And as I mentioned, some of them are going to be warehouses. Some of them are going to be data centers. We've got some like lithium-ion battery recycling plant, which is kind of close to my house, which is kind of disturbing. But they have a wonderful YouTube video that goes over the entire process. Something about no water leaves the facility. I don't know. If I find a link to that video, I will include a link to that in the description below. It's very neat to see how these lithium batteries are recycled. Now, if you hear any kind of like droning noise right now, that's the tires. This bike does have knobby tires. It is designed to be ridden off the beaten path on trails and things like that. So when you're cruising around, the noise you hear is the tread on the tires. The motor itself is extraordinarily quiet. I do have the Lectric XPeak 2.0, which is one of my favorite bikes. It's actually my first e-bike that I featured on this channel. I went out and bought that in the summer of 2023. That has a noticeably louder motor. Another bike that I tested out, that I made a whole review series on, is the Engine Pro 2.0. That bike has extremely loud motors. And I guess that could be a good and a bad thing. I let my dad test out some of the bikes that I review, and what he likes when he cruises around is something that's a little noisier, so it gets other people's attention when he's driving around. Because what he's found is that if a bike or a scooter is too quiet, sometimes you like creepily, creep up on people and you can startle them. And as you can see, this bike does not come with a bell. I'm not sure why they don't include a bell. Lectric still doesn't include bells on their bikes. But that's okay, I'll put my own bell on there. But anyways, so he likes devices that are a little bit louder. That way it's not startling for pedestrians. Once again, interesting perspective. For me, I'm always like, I want to get the quietest thing possible, So anyways, but yeah, they do use their, M24. They say it's like significantly quieter than other competitors' 750 watt motors. And I can tell you right now, there is a noticeable difference between these motors and some of the previous generation motors that they use on some of their other bikes, especially those 500 watt motors. But so far, folks, this is a very comfortable ride on this XPeak. It is a bigger bike. It's got those 26-inch by 4-inch fat tires. It's got, that Renegade RST suspension fork up front. It's got the suspension seat post. Makes for a very comfortable ride. Add on top of that the fact that you've got a torque sensor and very smooth power delivery. You get a very smooth overall ride experience on this bike. Now, one of the questions that I've gotten on multiple occasions in the past is whether or not something like this, like an XPeak 1.0 or 2.0, make for a good daily commuter. And I'm going to say the answer to that depends. If portability is key and having that small and compact so you can store it away, it's probably not going to be the most ideal solution. I mean, this thing has got those 26-inch by 4-inch fat tires. With the battery, it weighs in at around 75 pounds. It's not the lightest thing in the world. But if portability isn't a concern, if you have a place to safely lock this up wherever you're commuting to, I think this is a fantastic daily commuter because it's comfortable, it's got lots of power, And for me, you know, this thing rides like a tank. You know, you can basically plow over anything that you're going to ride over in the road, and you're not going to have to be, you know, as meticulously focused on, you know, road conditions. You know, this thing will just plow over potholes and things like that. Not that I'm encouraging anybody to ride in potholes, but it's a lot more versatile. Now, if you're looking for something that's lighter weight, that's maybe foldable, definitely take a look at the XP 3.0. I made an entire review series on that bike, something like 18 videos. I'll include the playlist above as well as in the description below. If you need something even smaller, even more lightweight, even easier to fold up, you can take a look at something like the XP Lite 2.0. We've got a video series on that as well. And if you're not a huge fan of shifting, if you want the latest and greatest in tech, check out the Lectric 1. I'll be making more content on that. That's another one of those bikes that I bought with my own money. And that's actually my favorite e-bike. Very smooth operation. Once you use a pinion gear shift, you almost look at these like bikes that are equipped with derailleurs as, you know, being something of a historical artifact, you know. it's that good. And with that particular bike, the Lectric 1, you can put it into automatic gear shift mode, or you can just electronically control the shifting on that. It also helps ensure that you're in the right gear when you come to a stop like this. Right now I'm in gear 7, obviously not a great gear to start out in, but with this bike, of course, we've got that throttle, so I'm not too concerned about that. Right over the train tracks. You didn't even feel them on this bike. That's amazing. So once again, a big bike like this, big tires, nice suspension, you're not gonna feel all that garbage in the road. All right, I think I'm gonna go ahead and get a cup of coffee. Now, one thing I wanna mention, if you're on the fence about getting an e-bike, I'm gonna tell you right now, it's one of the best investments I've ever made. Because I can't tell you how many places directly around where I live I've explored that I had no clue even existed. So riding around on an e-bike is gonna open up a whole world of opportunity for you. And hey, you know, some people say, oh, e-bike, you know, that's being lazy. I'll tell you what, you can absolutely get a workout on an e-bike. Just take a look at some of my hill climb videos that I've done with some of the other bikes on this channel. Definitely ample opportunity for getting a workout in. We'll pull into here. This is a little coffee place that recently opened up. I never tried them before, but we're gonna try them today. All right, folks, I went ahead and got myself a cup of coffee. I'm gonna finish this off and then we'll continue on our journey. All right, so we are back on our ride again. Had to get a little bit of coffee to wake up a little more. Now, if you are curious if this bike can hit its 28-mile-an-hour top speed, I'm gonna go ahead and put us in pedal assist 5, and let's see what we can crank out on this thing. I'm looking at our GPS speed here on my Garmin watch. The screen is showing, oh, just shy of 28 miles an hour. We'll pedal a little harder, get that torque sensor really going. 27.7 miles an hour. Without any crazy effort, you know. Obviously you're gonna be doing more work than you would, you know, casually pedaling, but if you wanna hit those speeds, you absolutely can. Just keep in mind that, you know, if you're gonna be riding around like that at higher rates of speed for long stretches, you'll definitely eat into your battery a lot quicker. As you can see, I'm in pedal assist 5 and we're cruising around at about 22 miles an hour. Very minimal effort. Feels really nice. But if I want to crank things up, all I have to do is pedal a little bit harder and that'll get us going faster. So that's what I really like about these torque sensors. So you can see bumps in the road, no problem for this bike. Super comfortable. Now I will be taking this thing up north here soon to the Flagstaff area, probably within the next month or so. For that, I will be loading this on my Destination E-bike rack. And that thing there supports up to 2 bikes weighing 70 pounds each. And so obviously this bike weighs 75 pounds, but when you remove the battery, it weighs in around 65 pounds. So considerably lighter. Pull into this shopping center here. Little shortcut. But yeah, if you are going to be transporting your bikes on a bike rack, I highly recommend taking the battery out. You don't want a bunch of direct sunlight, you know, heating up the tube, heating up the battery, especially if you live in a hot climate. You know, I'm here in the Phoenix, Arizona area, and it gets hot as sin out here, I'll tell you that. You know, sometimes over 120 degrees Fahrenheit. So pretty intense stuff. So you don't want to leave your batteries out too long in those conditions. In the near future, I will be doing another trail ride. Obviously, I'm not like an expert trail rider by any stretch of the imagination, but I do dabble, you know. I do dabble occasionally, and it's always a fantastic time. All right, here's our little water feature. Little bunny hop off the curb here. Got my gigantic Light Lock X1 in the bag. You might have heard it bounce off the rack there. That is definitely a beefy lock. Probably more than I need. I spent a couple $100 on that darn thing, but apparently it will resist angle grinders to a certain extent. So if you live in an area where you've got a lot of theft and foot traffic and stuff like that, you know, I'm thinking like New York City, San Francisco, like really any big city where you got a lot of foot traffic and stuff. I highly recommend the beefiest, bulkiest bike lock you can get, which has got all the protections against angle grinders and all that fun stuff. But if you live in the suburbs, you're not too worried about theft, not a whole lot of foot traffic, you know, using a lighter medium duty lock, you can probably get away with that. All right, so at the end of this parking lot here, we'll have a little bit of a hill climb of sorts. Right now I'm riding around in throttle only. Come around this curve in the road here, and we've got ourselves a little hill climb. Little one. Obviously we'll be doing a full hill climb test in the future, but we're still able to maintain speed coming up this incline, no problem at all. So in a second here I will be doing a speed and acceleration test, and for that we're going to use the Draggy GPS performance monitor, which is a GPS device that I've got attached at the rear of the bike, and it's got a companion app, the Draggy app, that it interfaces with, and that'll give us a really accurate way to gauge top speed and acceleration for this bike. So we are in pedal assist 5, and we're going to start the test in 3, 2, 1, go. Here we go. 12, 14, 15, 17, 19, 20, and there we go, the motor cut out, so we'll slow down here and see how we did. All right, folks, so looking at the data here, we got 0 to 10 miles an hour, 2.81 seconds, 0 to 15, 5.21 seconds, 0 to 20, 8.88 seconds. So as you can see, no problem at all hitting the advertised top speed in throttle only, which is 20 miles an hour. So those are pretty respectable numbers, especially considering this is a 75-pound bike with 26-inch by 4-inch fat tires, which of course are going to have more rolling resistance compared to a bike that has 20-inch by 3-inch fat tires or 20-inch by 4-inch fat tires. Cruise around on this grass here, and we will call this our stopping point for this ride, see how we did. All right, folks, so for our little ride around town, we did 18.21 miles. In terms of battery remaining, we're sitting at 50.7 volts, which translates to 75% battery remaining after over 18 miles of riding. So far, impressive performance on the battery. Of course, we'll be doing our full range test in the future to really test that out, but in the meantime, looks to be doing really good. So what are my thoughts on this bike so far? Well, I can tell you right now, it is a very smooth and comfortable ride, and we can thank this RST Renegade front fork with its 80 millimeters of travel, this rear suspension seat post, and we can't forget those 26-inch by 4-inch fat tires. All of those combine to create an exceptionally comfortable ride. In terms of power, this bike is very well equipped with that 750 watt, 1310 watt peak motor, which can crank out 85 Newton meters of torque. So as you saw in the speed and acceleration test, just under 9 seconds to get to 20 miles an hour using throttle only. So this should provide plenty of power for whatever you're gonna come across. I will include a link to that off-road trail ride where I'm going up super steep, basically cobblestone trails with this bike. So power is plentiful. And this bike is also very well put together. I did have the issue with that Elite headlight in the hardware, so I swapped that out. And I did have a little issue with the gear shifting, but that was a quick little adjustment. But other than that, this thing is very well put together. That hydroformed aluminum frame that you can see here meant there were no wobbles or anything like that on this ride, even when going over some bumpier stuff in the road. So overall, very impressed. Let me know if you have any questions, comments, thoughts, concerns. Happy to address those in the comment section below. And if you do want to pick one of these up, I will include an affiliate link in the description below. And if you use that to make your purchase, it absolutely helps support this channel and keeps the wheels moving on future reviews. So stay tuned for future content on this video. In the meantime, thank you so much for tuning into Tom's Gadget Garage. We'll see you next time.